I'm Kelly Siegel, and this is Harder Than Life, a podcast about self-love, self-awareness, business, and health. We tell outrageous stories and boil everything down to simple, practical advice you can start using today. Let's get living.
Today, I'm thrilled to welcome an incredible entrepreneur and results-driven leader to the Harder Than Life podcast. Lee Benson has dedicated his career to helping businesses harness the power of alignment and accountability to achieve extraordinary results. As the founder of Execute to Win, he's transformed countless organizations with the MIND methodology, showing leaders how to drive their teams forward their most important goals with clarity and purpose. You're going to want to take notes on this podcast because Lee grew his first company from 3 people to 500 employees with 15 consecutive years of 20% compounded average annual growth before his exit. Absolutely extraordinary, guys. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Thanks for joining us. I can't wait to dive into the insights on this achieving meaningful, measurable, or what you call mind, which, guys, the reason why I met Lee, I read his book, I tagged him, The Power of Social Media. I've made a lifelong friend. If you're watching the show, your most important number is the book that I read. And you all know, if you follow me, we're an EOS shop, and we've kind of replaced most of our EOS with your most important number. So thanks for joining us, Lee.
All right, Kelly, it's so good to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. This book has been sitting on my shelf right behind me. I'm going to hit it right in the pocket because the whole time I'm reading the book, I'm like, okay, so what's your most important number? So tell us what inspired you to write the book and what the key takeaway you hope the readers to achieve.
Yeah, you know, as you know, Kelly, I've started 8 companies from scratch now, and I've grown them. The one was to a 9-figure exit that you're referencing, and it was a 21.6x multiple of EBITDA. So this is a $100 million business, very profitable. At a time when everybody else was getting an 8x, if they were really strong, we got over 20x. And why was that? Because everybody was really focused on value creation in there. And how the book came about, Your Most Important Number, is I developed something called the MIND methodology, which stands for Most Important Number in Drivers. And one of the questions I would ask team members as I was developing this, and certainly before, how do you create value for the organization? And I would get a lot of kind of crazy answers that told me they had no idea. And so with the most important number in drivers, every team has one number that above all others says they're winning or losing the game. It's reflective of the value that they're creating, and it will drive the majority of the right behaviors. They're measuring other things to help make better decisions to improve that number, but they all have one. And so now when you ask the question, how do you create value for the organization? They say, for example, I'm on the marketing team. Our most important number is generating qualified leads. This is how many leads every month, and this is how it's growing. This is where we started. This is where we're going. We're currently on track, or maybe we're not, or maybe we're overdriving it. Here's the definition of a qualified lead, certain percent closing ratio, and this is the best work I'm doing to support that on the team. That's a pretty powerful answer. And so if every team in the company has a most important number, everybody's doing their best work to improve that number. When it improves, it accretes all the way to the most important number for the entire organization. And in the for-profit world, is generally going to be some kind of version of profit. It could be EBITDA, net profit. If it's a capital-intensive business, it really could be cash flow, and probably should be. But the nice thing about this, whether you have 1 team, 5 teams, 10 teams, or thousands of teams, these all bolt together like Legos. When one improves, it accretes up and improves all the way to the top.
So guys, go to www.etw.com, and he's got so many freebies and explanations on there that you can go in. And there's even a mastermind I noticed. So there's some really interesting stuff. And did I hear you right? 21.6 multiple?
21.6. Yeah.
Guys, we're going to deep dive into this. As you know, I own an IT company. And so I was reading this book, trying to figure out what our sales most important number is. And the whole time you're thinking, oh, of course it's closed business. By reading your book, I figured out it wasn't closed business. It wasn't even quoted business. What do you think? What in your expert opinion, what have you seen in a sales-driven organization? What's the most important number most of the time, or is it different for every organization?
Well, I believe, well, it depends on the stage, but I believe that it should be reflective of the value of the organization. So when you look at the market, how would you value your business? How is it, is everybody else valuing theirs? And where do you set in there? So that would be it. Now, for a sales-driven organization, you have marketing, you have closing the sales, you have delivery of services, you have all of that stuff. They'll all have their most important number. But for the overall organization, how would you value it? For example, Kelly, in my Execute CEO mastermind groups that I run, every single CEO in the group, and we limit it to 8, so we know so much about each other's business. Their primary job is to continually and responsibly increase the value of their business. That's it. And we're all leaning in like it's a conglomerate that we've invested over half of our money in it, metaphorically, to make sure that that's happening. So I don't think it really matters what the for-profit business is. It should be the value of that business and how you look at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So with us, if we figured out as we drilled down, our most important number in sales was the first time appointments. Because what was happening is we were growing internally. We were, once we have those appointments, they typically close better than 50% close rate. So what really moves the number in our business is just bringing new people in. So we've really, since I read this book, and we've just changed that, and literally we manage the sales team on that every week. I don't look at anything else. I don't care what's closed. It's just how many new appointments did we bring into the funnel? And needless to say, we're leveraging AI and a grand slam offer, and we're going to quadruple that. And I'll bet you our revenue, our sales quadruple as well. So we literally leveraged to a T. And then I took it over because I'm like, this is fantastic. What is our most important number in our service? And we figured out our time to resolution was it, because our people want their tickets closed fast. And you can sit here and you can sell a promise all you want, but selling proof and showing them the number, like this is how fast it takes us. We're averaging, I have all of this written down, but I know it to a T. It's 2.5 hours average to close resolve, not close. We use resolve because we don't have any recidivism. All of our help desk tickets. So if you call in with a I can't bold in Word, or my screen is blue screened, 2.5 hours later on average. So that means that, some are 5 hours and some are 1 minute.
Yeah.
And it's unheard of in the business. So we're so fast. We ask competition to compare, and nobody wants to play with us.
All right. Well, I love that. And we're finding this really everywhere. When the team has a clear understanding of how they create value, this number that you're talking about, they can actually, create that value. And in most companies, they're just not that clear. You talked about EOS, but it could be OKRs. It could be a number of other systems out there. There's a lot of goals that just aren't that thoughtful, and people are accomplishing a lot of things, but they're not moving the needle. With the most important number for every team, the needle moves really fast, and we're seeing it like literally everywhere.
So my next question, you'll appreciate this, and it's a personal question. So your mind methodology has transformed companies, but how can individuals apply it to their own lives? The first thing I thought of when I was reading this, man, I'm like, oh my God, I have a most important personal number. And I'll tell you what it is after you explain it.
This whole approach here is about creating value. And I think about creating value holistically: material value, which we all get, emotional energy value, which positive emotional energy, in my view, is the scarcest commodity on the planet. And then spiritual value creation at its core is about connectedness with yourself, your family, a higher power, communities that are important to you, all of that. And my personal most important number for me is fulfillment. And, people talk about it, being happy and everything's great if you're happy. If you're not, something must be wrong. Well, it's impossible to be happy all the time. We're going to go through life struggles. We have to struggle to grow, so we're not going to be happy all the time. But I have noticed that my internal fulfillment can continually go up over time. That's
so. Would it be any surprise to you that my most important number is 7? It is an actual number, and it's the number of workouts I do a week, because everything in my life trickles down from my workouts, everything. And if I go 6, it just, my happiness decreases. Just everything falls apart from that, and I gotta go. Guys, if you haven't read this book, I mean, whether you're an EOS user, a sprinter, whatever, read this book. You will learn things. If you guys can see, if anybody's watching this, I have probably 50 pages pinned back. Strengthening leader. This is a leadership. He keeps saying, I call it an optimization book. Right? We're just going to optimize everything and provide clarity. I always say, fail to plan, plan to fail. And this book, actually, you know who actually turned me on to was Evan. On our podcast. He said, I said, what book would you recommend right now? And he recommended that. And I listened to my podcast a second time with him. And I'm like, wait, I missed that book. And I read it. And then now I've made a friend. So you haven't read this book, and whether you're in business or not, this also applies to your personal life. So what's the most surprising story of transformation you've seen from someone using these principles in your book?
Another really good question. I think for the most part, people are surprised at how fast it goes. So we had one construction company based in California in 5 states. In less than a year, they had it out to all approximately 1,000 employees, all the way to the front line, every team organized. And in that particular case, the CEO had a plan to sell or exit in 3 to 5 years. They did so well the first year, they exited in 18 months. And it was more than they thought. When we started, I looked, in fact, we started with them right in the middle of the pandemic, and they'd never made $3 million in EBITDA. And fast forward 18 months, they're at a run rate of just under $20 million in EBITDA.
Wow.
That's amazing. Had another virtual assistant based company, got involved with them. They've been around a little over a year. Had 67 VAs, and 6 months later, they had 350 as part of the process and part of the services. I helped them recruit a president. 20 months later, when that president was in there, around 350 VAs, that was valued at $1.7 million. We had an external valuation service on that. And then 20 months later, it was valued at $48.6 million. So it's amazing what happens when you organize everyone in a way to just be focused on creating more and more value as an organization. And for sure, the number that's more material, whether it's cash flow or profit, it's wildly important to cultivate that, but you don't get nearly the multiple or the pace of growth if you're not focusing on improving the emotional energy value created inside the business and the connectedness value with all of the team members as well, because we want them productively engaged. We want them all acting like the CEO of their own role and just going for it. I mean, this is this sense of achievement, accomplishment, self-esteem. All of that comes from accomplishing really amazing things. And we want this high level of productive engagement inside the organization. So every time it's done with a serious effort, because there's no silver bullet or magic pill, right, Kelly? It's like you actually have to lift a finger and do something. But when it's done, it works literally every single time. And the couple times that it hasn't worked, it made the founder or CEO wildly uncomfortable, because there's a lot of transparency that goes along with this. And that's okay. Not everybody's comfortable sharing all the numbers. And what I believe, if we can't show our team members the bullseye, how do we expect them to hit it? We can't just say, stay in your silo and do your best work, and it will all come together. With a mind methodology, everybody can see each other's most important number. When applied properly, they can see how the company's doing. They all realize that if the company increases in value over time, it's going to be good for everyone for so many reasons. So with very few exceptions where I've seen it not work, it's made senior leadership uncomfortable being that transparent. In all other cases, it's been transformational. Does that make sense, Kelly?
I follow it to a T because, we live and breathe and eat it. That's why I had you on the podcast,
Yeah.
because I didn't know this existed. So we implemented EOS, and it's funny. You just said this. This is faster than EOS because it took us 2 years to feel the effects of implementing EOS. We changed a few things. Now, probably helped that we, run EOS and people understood it. But we changed and moved to the most important number, and we could feel the effects a lot faster. So it was way quicker than 2 years. It was probably a couple of months, and it really just razor focused everything that we did. What was that? Was it the bobsled thing? There was a story, and I'm gonna butcher it, but basically it was, I want to say it was a bobsled team or something about. Oh no! It was a bike team, a racing bike team that was trying to go on the Tour de France, and they said everything their most important number was, does it make the bike faster? So everything they did was, does it make the bike go? It just simplifies life, because you got 85,000 things going on at once. I have a personal brand, I have 30 people that report to me, and there's certain times where I can't see which way is up. So in EOS terms, if you're an EOS person, this is not a knock on it. We're in Michigan. I know Gino personally. His partner's been on the podcast. It's different strokes for different folks. It's what works for you. Every business and every person is different. So if this works, great. We're just giving you other options. And I could tell you this much: Lee is an amazing gentleman, and he's the proof is in the pudding, man. He's done the real deal. So where I was going to go is, this is delegate and elevate. Really is what it is. It's delegate, and here's what your numbers. And we take it a step further. We have digital displays for everybody to see their number, and then they compare each other, and then they help each other, because we've built this culture, which you discuss in there. So how do you incorporate the culture into the Mind methodology?
Yeah. Well, look, a value creation culture is what I believe we're all shooting for. We want to build a machine, a company. I metaphorically think of a company as a value creation machine. Everybody plays a part. They're a gear, they're a transmission, they're an engine, but they all play a part. All has to fit together really well. So once you start implementing the Mind methodology, and everybody's talking about their most important number, it automatically drives cross-functional collaboration. The sales team is curious what the marketing team is doing. They're both curious as to what delivery of service is doing, because they all help each other as each one of those gets better or improves. So just changing the language a little bit starts to drive a change in culture. I get communications from folks around the world regularly that have read the book. Didn't do a formal implementation. All they did is tell me, hey, we just changed the language. Everybody has the most important number. And then here we are a month later, the CEO wants to do something, and his team is looking back saying, why are we doing that? What does that have to do with the most important number? Perfect. So, one of my slogans, Kelly, is do less better. Until you're doing the basics really, really well. And I've found that generally there's not more than 3 or 4 things that drive over 80% of the value in every organization. Until you're doing those incredibly well, why would you pick something else, to do? So it just changing the language a little bit changes the culture in the direction of a value creation culture. Now, one of the things I love about the Mind methodology, when you put this basic foundation in place. So every team has a most important number. They have a set of drivers, which are just categories of work that they can leverage to improve their most important number. So this is the continuous improvement part of it. And then they have their meetings where they're discussing and taking actions around the best work they can do to improve their most important number. So once that's in place, anything else you want to do becomes easy. If you have a strategy session, which in my view is nothing more than just approaches to increasing the value of the business, stop making it complicated. It's just approaches to increasing the value of the business. You can now cascade that out appropriately to every single team. If you have an intentional culture where you have a list of behaviors that cause the most value to be created and you want everybody to live it, you cascade that right into the system. So it causes the culture to move in that direction of value creation just by changing the language. And then you can be, if you want to be, and I talk about this in the book, you can be really intentional about driving a culture that does create the most value.
You guys got to listen to the words he's using. By the way, do less better. That's fire. You're going to see a bunch of reels from me about that. Do less better. Keep it simple. We're always so worried about expanding and the newest, latest, greatest, but do what you do and do it best. Create value and deliver results. Business is that freaking simple. Now, I will tell you, if you listen to the podcast at all and I talk about business, I started when I was 12 years old. I lied and said I was 13 and started a paper route. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I've done to build every single business I've ever done to success is have a plan and execute that towards that plan. And that's literally what most important number is about. So if you're starting a business and you're listening to this podcast or you're thinking about starting a business, get some sort of business operating system, whether it be most important, the Mind methodology, EOS, or something, because I fought it for years. And then when I put it in during the pandemic, we doubled in revenue and we tripled profit because we had a plan, we had a map. So if you hit, it's like a GPS. You hit your GPS, gives you the simplest and quickest route to where you're going. That's what this is. So if you're even thinking about starting a business, run out, buy this book, go to his ETW, execute2win.com, get in the room with this guy. Is absolutely brilliant. And then we're going to jump into the podcast because he's got a brilliant podcast that somehow I weaseled my way on, and it was a good time because this man is a brilliant genius, and everything he touches goes to gold. So your podcast deep dives, and by the way, it's called Show Your Value. So please follow it. Show Your Value. Here we go again. Value, results. I can't get over the do less better. Do less better, Lee. That's beautiful.
I have a t-shirt I'll send you if you want it.
Do less better. Isn't that what we all want? Excuse me. Yeah. Your podcast dives deep into performance-driven cultures. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from your guests so far?
That is another amazing question. So I've had about 50 guests so far on the podcast. I started earlier this year going through. There's so much from all of them. Like I love Brian Smith, so founder of UGG boots, so the sheepskin boots from Australia. And it was probably, I want to say 10-ish years before they even hit $1 million in sales. And then it was another 5 or 6 years before they sold it. And I think it was in the $25 million range. And then fast forward 20 years and they're doing $2.2 billion in sales or something like that. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me, and you and I know that business is hard, it's challenging, but it's fun, it's rewarding, it's our healthy struggle so we can grow ourselves. Totally get it. We know it's not a straight line, but he said it's really a series of plateaus. I love that lesson. Like you figure something out, you take a big jump, like putting in an operating system. And then you stay there for a while, then you figure something else out and you take another jump, whatever that is. And I just thought that was so spot on. But so many lessons, and it doesn't happen overnight. There's always a pre-story to the story, sometimes a couple of pre-stories. So when people think, oh my gosh, how come this stuff that doesn't just happen for me? I remember doing new employee orientations, and I was in one of them. And I had an employee actually say that. So every month back in the aerospace days, I would bring in all the new employees, talk about the history and what we're doing. And he actually said that, how come this stuff never just happens to me? And I'm like, well, I guess at this point, this is my, at the time, 23-year overnight success story. So I guess it didn't just happen to me, to me either. And I think a lot of people want something without having to go through what it takes to earn it. And I think that's an issue. You actually have to earn something. And for me, and a lot of what I talk about in the podcast and the folks that I interview, they're in it to create real value in the world. Oh, and by the way, all of this profit, all this recognition, brand, everything kind of happens alongside. But you can tell that they're just so focused on creating value in the world, not rigging the game, trying to make as much money as fast as they can. There's a big difference between those two. And I think going forward, there's going to be very few startup entrepreneurs that I'll get involved with, because it seems like the majority of them are in it for the wrong reasons, not to really create value in the world. And I think those that are really in it to make a difference in the world, I don't know. I wonder what you would guess, Kelly. I think it's less than 10% of them, maybe less than 5% of them, unfortunately.
I'm an optimist, so I would hope it's higher. I would guess around 50%, just because I'm the eternal. I believe most people are good, but I'm naive.
Well, I'm not saying they're bad. I think they're in it for the wrong reasons. Like I went, for example, to Arizona Startup Week, and there were probably 40-ish founders in the room. And I talked to most of them, and there was one that was so passionate. She had this health tracking product and what they could do with it. Like, I need to learn more, but I would invest in that. The rest of them, the questions were, what do I need to put in my deck for you to give me money? And like, they couldn't even have a conversation about the value. They just wanted to go there. And so there's one in 40 that I met in one instance, and I get to meet a lot of them. They're not bad people. They see success as, oh, I made a bunch of money, and I look at everybody else doing it. I want to do that too, instead of, I really want to solve this problem, which will cause that other stuff to happen for them a higher percentage of the time. In fact, I titled my talk, why 90% of startups fail and why 90% of them don't have to. It could be less than 10% if they're really focused on creating value in the world. This isn't a good or bad comment or set of comments coming from me, Kelly. It's just, let's go at it with the right intent, and you'll probably make a lot more money.
Yeah, I used a bad word. What I meant is that their intentions are good and bad. Either way.
Yes, 95% intentions are good, maybe more, 100%. Yeah.
Do you think that a lot of that has to do with the lack of being able to be emotionally intelligent and just communicate like you and I do? Like, just looking at someone and saying, Lee, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do here. And just admitting it. I find that in my business, communication is 90% of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think there's a large part of it where people are just uncomfortable being vulnerable around that. Like we both heard, people don't fake, being depressed. If anything, they fake things are way better than they are. And then we find out there was a giant problem because they wouldn't talk about it. But here's my belief, is that if you're not in balance when it comes to what I'm calling sort of 3 macro buckets or categories of value creation, it's not going to feel good. If you're focused primarily on the money and you haven't worked on, equally as hard, cultivating positive emotional energy, which again, scarcest commodity on the planet because it supercharges everything we do, and you haven't intentionally cultivated connectedness, understanding yourself, your family, God, whatever's important to you around that, communities, all of it. If you're not in balance in those 3 ways, and everybody gets to pick what that balance looks like, it doesn't feel good. It's the stories where, the multi-billionaire commit suicide. They were wildly unhappy. Well, they didn't spend the same amount of time cultivating emotional energy and spiritual value creation. So for me, the more I work on all 3 buckets, keeping it in the right balance for me, the better I feel, the more fulfilled I am. Last year, there was an investment I made, not that large, relatively speaking, $300,000. There was probably right around $3 million in total that was raised. The company went under, and the relationships that I made, the connections in there, and the emotional energy of just working with the internal team and their passion, way more than covered up that $300,000 loss. But the rest of the folks were really upset about it, the investors that came in. So I'm looking at it, well, I'm in balance in all 3. I can leverage the relationships I made to go make more than that money back if I choose to. I mean, there's clear dots being connected over in that direction. And it was a non-event for me. But because so much of our culture today is about the money, even your relative status as a person, it's crazy that happens. So long way around, answering your question. I think it's because they're out of balance between material, emotional, and spiritual value creation. All of them important. They're just out of balance. How does that land on you, Kelly?
It's ironic you say that, because I've been working lately on just focusing on the day-to-day consistency of positivity, and divorcing the outcome, and just saying, no matter what happens, as long as I came and day in and day out gave it the best I could with the best intentions, and forget about the outcome, all of a sudden the outcome is showing up faster and quicker. And that's everything in personal life and my professional life. And it's been over the last couple of weeks, because I did a priming session with a business coach where he noticed that the harder than life mantra and name, I was actually waking up every day and making life hard, business hard, because everybody says it's so hard. So I would start a fight and create a fight that didn't exist. And I was actually creating the resistance. So now that I wake up and you talk about spirituality and just say today's going to be a good, easy day, and the universe is going to provide me with many gifts, and my days have gotten so much better. And I'm successful. We are on a multi-million-dollar cybersecurity IT business. The Heart of Life brand is blowing up. And I was waking up creating my own resistance. So what you just said is very real. And I feel it I am a living, breathing example of, I was the biggest problem. And and frankly, I always am.
Yeah, we do seem to create unnecessary emotional struggle. And I think that's probably true for just about everyone. And that means there's something there to kind of work on. And one thing that I've fully learned, and it's been this way for a long time, is to trust the struggle. Sometimes the harder it is, the more of a warm, fuzzy, tingling feeling I get inside, because I know it's going to be amazing when I come out the other side, even when it kind of sucks right now, if that makes sense. And, just like you doing your workouts and going to the gym, you're so incredibly fit. That's a struggle. You're putting in effort to improve yourself physically, which leads to emotionally, mentally, being stronger. Also, there's healthy struggles, and there's lots of those. There's unhealthy struggles, could be illness, drug addiction, or something worse. And then there's intentionally designed struggle. So I think when we're building a business, we've intentionally designed this struggle sandbox, and we're in there to figure it out. And we know we're doing the right work when the business is continually and responsibly increasing in its actual value going forward. So trusting struggle is something that parents are taking away from all the kids with the best of intentions. And no wonder they're not ready to be an adult. A lot of them. And I think employers are taking struggles away from team members, and we're not doing anybody any favors. Like, how do we grow without some sort of effort to improve? Like, I don't get it. Like, the whole premise is screwed up, and I don't know how we got here. I see it. Easier should be better. Not really. Not in all cases.
Trust the struggle. Oh man, listeners, you are getting, this is free. That's what's great about it. He's giving you a free, this is what I do every day. So thank you for sharing. I want to unpack that even more, but I still got questions about the podcast. So because I love your podcast, it's free. Another free resource that you can go out there. So there's absolutely no reason to fail unless you just give up. I mean, the resources, you can listen to this show. You can reach out to me. You can read this. What was the book? $20? Read this book, $20. You can read Gino's Wickman's Traction. Everything you need is available, and most of it is free. and some of it is so simple.
Yeah.
What do you hope the listeners gain from tuning into your show? 50 in. What do you gain besides value that you keep repeating over and over and over?
To approach life through a value creation lens, a holistic value creation lens. Again, the material, the emotional energy, and the spiritual, like go through that. I've had a number of folks ask me the question, how will we apply that to voting? Because I think there's an election coming up, right?
I saw that.
Yeah. And so I did about a 15-minute, short on my podcast around that, where I just talked about it. And if you think about the most important number concepts, and now we want to make decisions that improve the conditions in our lives, right? So when I think about government, at a high level, their job is to continually improve conditions to work, live, learn, and play for the citizenry at a lowering relative cost over time. And so when you step back, is that what they're supposed to do? Is that what you want them to do? I think that represents the majority of Americans, even though they can't articulate it. And then great. So now let's analyze it. If they are capable of doing that, I also think they need to be moral. So we have to make win-win decisions in the best interest of the country, not for, personal power or financial gain. But if they're capable of doing it, you would see the results. And you could take any federal agency, if you just want to start there. If we look at the group of health agencies, FDA, CDC, NIH, their collective missions, if you go to their websites, are directionally to continually improve the health and well-being of the citizenry. So every year, more and more money goes into those collectively, and every year, the health and well-being of the citizenry gets worse and worse. So for me, they're not capable of doing their job. So when I think about voting, who will make a change there? Because there's nothing more important than that. Our health and well-being, it's the foundation of everything, that we do as a citizenry. And I could do the same thing in education, more money going into the K-12 system. Every year, the results are going down. They're not capable. And you'll find a lot of, captured agencies, from it could be big pharma on the healthcare side. It could be curriculum providers, school bus contracts. It's so strange when you go to the state legislature in Arizona, and it's supposed to be about the kids when the K-12 stuff comes up. But the vast majority of the discussions are adults fighting over money, and it's not about the kids. It just isn't. So this is all about, and this is why I started the podcast, I'm trying to perpetuate holistic value creation behaviors out into the world. Think about applying it holistically in your for-profit company, in your nonprofit company, and especially within your family. What would be different in every family if they were building legacy holistically, not just a bunch of money, divide and hope for the best someday? Let's build it generation to generation, as well as the emotional energy, what it feels like to be in the family, and how connected the family is to themselves and everything important to that family. Build legacy that way. That's why, Kelly, I took over recently as interim CEO of a company called Dinner Table, and we have over 14,000 parents in our parenting community. And then we have more actively engaged communities beside that. But our whole goal is to, basically raise the next generation of value creators. And the community is just one big community of parents raising kids to create value in the world. So when I look at the three legs of the stool where I'm trying to have impact in the world, it's for-profit, nonprofit, and now families to drive these holistic value creation behaviors. And if we get it right with the kids, oh my gosh, that's going to be an amazing world for us to age out in someday.
Lee, how much of the Execute to Win mastermind program is about mindfulness? I find you tremendously mindful, and that's why I think I resonate to you. So what you're really saying is take out the emotions and focus. And that's literally when you focus on your most important number, that's what you do. I never even thought, when I was going through the show prep and I was looking through all your podcast guests, the first one I looked at was that the voting. I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this one. And I didn't even think about it, because you're right. how many people do you hear? And I don't want to go down the politics. Last podcaster we had went down politics, and it just literally, I'm voting for Kamala because I don't like Trump. Well, that doesn't make sense. The vice versa is true. I'm going to vote for Trump because Kamala, well, she hasn't given us any numbers. So I don't know. I don't want to make this about thing, but I'm like to use references. But if I have a nickel for every person that said I'm going to vote for one or the other because I don't like the other person, it's like you missed the mark. And I think that's what you were saying. So again, I asked you a question and then I freaking talked over you, so I apologize.
No,
how much of the program is mindfulness? Because I find you tremendously mindful.
Yeah, well, with every CEO in each of these groups, our job is to keep them at that right place where they need to be at every point in time to responsibly and continually increase the value of their business. And I would say that emotion plays a giant part in all the work that I do. What's helpful about organizing, the most important numbers and how to think about strategy and business model and the value of our products and culture and all of that is when the emotions are swinging, and that happens in all of us. You can look back at the value that you're creating right in front of you, and it keeps you right there. And it's so helpful for me that when negative emotions might come up, self-limiting, whatever that might be, or noise from the outside, because not everybody's happy with everything that I do as I'm passionately creating value in a certain area. Having this value creation lens, I look at internal talk that maybe isn't, that most helpful, or external noise. Does that have anything to do with reality of, around the value I'm trying to create? If the answer is no, it's such an easy hack, right? To keep it there. And you brought up the voting piece of it. I never would tell anybody who to vote for. I just say, hey, I'm encouraging you to vote for folks that will create policies that will improve conditions for your family and communities that are important to you. And that's it. Like take the emotion out. But the challenge that most of the citizenry has, in my view, all of the voters, is that our news media business model has become one of monetizing division. That's it. Like the more upset they can get people, the more eyeballs, the more money they make on advertising. Through the value creation lens, that takes a lot of value out of the world. And I look at the United States, and I could go around the world with this. I just look at the United States, and my view, we're not even realizing 10% of the value we could be creating as a country, not even 10%. And I think the most pent up, unrealized value creation potential is in the low and middle income families. And I say that because the kids have way more drive than the upper middle income and above families, way more drive. They want it. I came from a super low income family. You and I have talked about this before. Lots of crazy chaos, family members in and out of, prison for some bad things. I had the drive, right? So I look at that. And so I went from negative to having multi-generational wealth and just my time here. All of these kids can do it, but what do we have in the media? Oh, it's not your fault. It's that political party's fault or that person's fault. That they make it sound like the most important thing in the world is the election cycle and who's going to win, instead of what can we do as a country to create more and more value. I'm curious, did you watch the capture of that booster rocket, Elon Musk video that's been flying around? They just giant, like 20-story booster rocket segment comes in, and they capture it on the pole. It didn't land on the ground. They captured it on the side of this frame. And you could see the people just going nuts with how cool that was. Like, look at this technology and what's going on. We need to get back to that. And it can be happening everywhere, right? But instead, no, the most important thing, according to news media, is who's going to win an election and how upset we can make you with somebody else, right? So emotion plays a giant part, but let's be really mindful and let's have a framework for how to address these emotions that just are taking value out of the world, not helping you create more value.
There's so many places I can go with that. United we stand, divided we fall. And here's a newsflash. No matter who the president is, I'm going to win. So are you. Mm-hmm. So really they can divide us all they want. And it's just one side is winning. So I would tell you that, there's a reason why we haven't had an attack on U.S. soil. That will unite us. That's why they're attacking Elon Musk, because that space exploration unites us. I mean, that's why when we put people on the moon, that was one of the most important times where we came together. When we do amazing, epic things, it unites us. Mm-hmm. And just like the infighting. But I was flipping over because I'm just fascinated by you. You're doing good in the world and you're trying to share good. You don't need to do any of this stuff. You don't need the money. I'm on your website, the ETW, and I drove into the execute chairs, not the chairs, but the mastermind. Mm-hmm. There's 8 people allowed in there. What's it cost?
$25,000 a year to be part of it.
Okay, $25,000 a year to be, and that's the best investment, because you are your best investment. It sounds like a lot. I've spent a lot more than that on myself, and you get it back probably 10x and even more, because you're going to be in a room with people that are doing what you're doing and want to do and think like you. And then to go back to your question, your thing about the lower to middle class kids, there's so many more of them. So why are we focused on the upper class when the lower and middle class, there's just so many more kids, and we need to get them those limiting beliefs that they learned from their parents out of them. You and I are a perfect example of that. I mean, one of the number one things I had to teach myself was confidence, because everybody that I grew up with are dead or in jail, and we were taught you're going to amount to nothing because you're where you grew up, and that is bullshit. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I emphasized that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, but I think you're right. Perspective is everything. If you can't believe it to be possible, then likely it's 99% probably never going to happen in there. So, this is a huge opportunity. One thing I'll say, when you say I don't have to do this, I could just go camping and play guitar, and I'm actually in another band, just released an album, and not do anything but that. I could do that, but I feel really good when I'm driving holistic value creation behaviors in the world. And the way I think about practicing virtue, because I think the majority of the world virtue signals a lot more than they actually practice virtue. And for me, it's creating objectively measurable value, and at the same time pushing back on things, taking value out of the world. So you're either creating value and it's measurable and you can feel it, net positive value. If a company makes billions of dollars, but it takes $1 trillion out of the world to do it, that did not create any positive value. So you're creating value, or you're taking it out of the world somehow by rigging the game. And what I believe is that for whatever I create, I need to push back on things, taking it out, at least in proportion. And so I agree with you. We're going to win no matter what. And I still think we need to push back hard on what's happening with social media and news outlets that are monetizing division, to move them more in a direction of creating value. And the more value creators we create, just the math says the number that are taking it out of the world will decrease. And I think the reason it keeps rising up and blowing up, and it's done it for all of recorded history, is because those taking value out of the world never stop, but they get, sort of ridiculous enough to where everybody else goes, okay, we've had enough and we're done. And once it's done, they go back to creating value and don't pay attention to them. What I'm advocating for, Kelly, is that we actually pay attention to it and call it out, shine a flashlight on it every time we see it. All of us can do it, even if it's just one situation, one person. All of us have the ability to do it. But I theorize the reason it keeps rising up and doing this is because they never stop, and we stop until it gets bad enough to pay attention.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's life too. It's we have to hit proverbial rock bottom before we make change. And unfortunately, that's what it looks like our country is headed to. It's like we have to hit such divisiveness that everybody feels it. And then we go, whoa, we shouldn't have done all this infighting and focus on the most important number, which is bringing the United States poverty level up. So, and we could talk about this forever. I want to get into some, I want to get into your personal life because you know, right now it's you're very successful, a lot of money. You just talked about a band that you're in. By the way, it's a cool name. Tell me the name of the band.
It's Landed. It's like a plane coming in for a landing, but it's Landed is the name of the band. There's 4 of us. Released the album probably 8 weeks ago now, and we have our first gig playing out in a few weeks in Phoenix. We did a listening party here in my music studio. That's what I'm calling in from here today, and probably had 80-ish people here. It was just a lot of fun. Did it acoustically, played 5 songs or 6 songs, and then listened to the album. But it's been a power hobby my whole life. I started playing guitar so young, I don't remember not knowing how to play guitar. And I still make the time to play 2 to 3, sometimes more hours every single day to stay in shape to be able to play this stuff.
Where can I get the album?
Anywhere, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal. I think it's in 18 different streaming services. I'll text you a link to the Spotify when we finish here.
Next time you have those parties, let me know. I have to get to Arizona, and I only go out west when I have to be somewhere to support someone I love. And you're one of those people. And, you know, being in a room with you can't help but be better. What's the significance of Landed? You told me, and it was remarkable, and I can't remember what it is.
Well, everyone in the band, they've done amazing things, and we're just coming around like, what would the name of the band be? So we're a guitar band, and so it's almost like Black Crowes, STP, and Alice in Chains had a baby, and that was the band. That's what we sound like.
Oh, send me that link, dude. STP and Alice in Chains are 2 of my favorite bands, and I listen to rap because I grew up in the ghetto, but I still. If I want to get pumped up in the gym, I listen to rock. And Alice in Chains, that was my college band when I first went to and Stone Temple Pilots. You just couldn't get through college without listening to those 2. So send me that link. I'm excited.
Yeah, I will. And then hey, we've all landed here, and the groove is incredible. And we started talking about, hey, Landed sounds like a pretty good name for the band, and the cover of it.
Landed.
A Les Paul with wings and light behind it after one of the songs that we wrote.
All right, I got some fun questions. So in your own life, what's your most important number that you focus on and why?
Talked about a little bit earlier, but it's fulfillment, because I think you can elevate that throughout your life, even when times are really tough and you go through periods of not being very happy for different reasons. Fulfillment can still climb. Am I doing the right work? Am I having an impact? Whether it's for this life or the next, selfishly in a win-win way, it makes me feel really good to do that.
And you notice people that are listening to this. This is a very successful, very wealthy man, and he still makes time to have fun. Lee, full disclosure, I was grinding so hard, I'd forgotten to have fun. In the last 3 weeks when I did that priming exercise, you hear me joking around and telling jokes and laughing, and I forgot to be me. I was just nose down, most important number, go, 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 and forgot to be human and, trust the struggle, as you said, and do less better, which are just, dude, I'm loving these Bensonisms, if you will. So thank you for that. And so another question is, how do you stay motivated and aligned with your goals on a day-to-day basis when you don't really need to do this stuff?
Well, I feel like I do need to do this stuff. Now, I don't need it to afford food or a roof over my head. But I feel like I'm driven to do this. I could stop. I feel like I'm making such traction driving holistic value creation behaviors into the world in so many different ways. That's so fulfilling. Like if I stop doing all this and I just plateau my internal fulfillment, and that might start to go down, and that would kind of suck. This is important to me to do. If I want to keep increasing that internal most important number, I can't stop. and I've got a lot of diversity in the things that I do, between the band and exercise. I've got another book I'm in the middle of writing. It's a full life, and I love it.
Please, when you get it, send it to me. So we'll have you back on the show. I love reading the books and sharing them with people, because this is how you get smart. This is the cheapest and easiest personal development tool, reading. And it's available to everybody. So I think I said this on your podcast, but I will tell this again to everybody. Even money doesn't make you happy, but happiness will make you money. So if you're going to focus on your mind, make your mind right, do good, feel good, do good, be good. And it's so simple, but we focus too much on external. If I just make this $1 million, I'll be worthy. I'll be good enough. No. Why don't you just be good enough? And then you'll make them $10 million if you focus on the most important number, which to me is that 7, working out and feeling good, doing good. And it's so much simpler than what we make it. So I'm going to ask you some personal fun questions, because you're so serious but fun. I'm going to ask you some fun ones. So I'm going to ask you to
all right,
be cool. Guys, go out and get his book. This guy is a walking genius. And the whole time I was thinking, by the way, it's so funny we're talking about Elon Musk. The whole time I'm talking to you again this time, I was thinking Elon Musk. The two of you guys would have a very good conversation.
That would be amazing. Someday it'll likely happen.
It will. So if you could have any superpower to boost business results, what would it be and why?
Wow. So I get to call the superpower whatever I want.
Anything you want.
Yeah. Well, it's back in that bucket of value creation, but it's confidence. I
love that answer, because I literally have been sitting here thinking about the Heart in Life coaching and like, what's my most important number in the coaching program? And it's, my girlfriend looked at me, she's like, confidence. She said, you're the most confident person I've ever met. It's like, oh, that was hard for me to accept. I don't know why. Do you get that in our conversations?
You're very confident, and I want to qualify it and say it has to be real confidence, not a facade. The comments that I'll get. I did a workshop a couple weeks ago, and somebody just said he's never I always get asked for biggest takeaways. Like, did you get anything out of this? Well, yes or no, and either way, it's good information for me. And this gentleman's takeaway was he's never experienced somebody have the calm confidence to lead a session like this, like never experienced a facilitator do that. I'm like, whatever. It's like breathing for me. I've done it so many times with my own businesses and helped others do it. There's no imposter syndrome anywhere. It's like when it came to taking the hill, I built the hill, tore it down 3 times, took all sides, and then took it another time. It's like, so we earn confidence, right? And I want folks to feel confident with what they've done and keep building on it to grow that internal fulfillment and confidence over time. Don't give in to, I can't do it. You're here. There's always a better way than you can think of today. It's your job to find it. Work really hard on that instead of beating yourself up emotionally or in any other way. I've never said I can't do that. Like, how hard could it be has always been my mantra, like for decades. Sure, I can do that. The initial company, we had a small electroplating shop, weren't making it as a job shop. Hey, let's apply this to the aircraft industry. Well, how do we do that? Well, you have to become an FAA repair station to do it. Okay, well, I'll go do that. And I found somebody, I wrote the manual, got certified to do it. What would most people say, Kelly? Oh, I've never done that before. I can't do that. And then you just move on. It's like,
or can't be done. That big one is it can't be done. No is people's go-to. I would say, is it no that you don't know how to do it, or is it no, it can't be done, or is it no, you just are giving me your limitations? I always say, let's get to know, KNOW. Let's know what it entails. And I just thought about this. I was talking to you. you take that confidence, and part of having that confidence is figuring out what that most important number is, and that gives you the razor focus. So think about this. I'll use me. I want to lose weight, or I want to I want to have a 6-pack of abs. It isn't, I got to go diet. I got to meal prep. I got my most important number with my goal. Most important numbers, get to the gym 7 times. So without that, nothing happens. Nothing. You can diet all you want. You're not going to get 6-pack. So you take this simple most important number and build it with consistency and confidence. That's literally what my coaching program is. Consistency, confidence, and your most important number. And you got the Heart of Life coaching program. And it works. This is the scary part about it. Yeah. It works for business, fitness, relationships. It works for anything you want. Want to talk about relationships? I can sit here and tell you what your most important number is. And it might be a reciprocal, which is the things you shouldn't be doing that you are doing. It's wild where you can take this, and it's fascinating, but it is simple. Which is a funny question I put together here, because I don't like it, but I think it's going to give us some good dialogue. What's one thing you're surprisingly terrible at, despite being a master of alignment and efficiency?
That's funny. Dancing. So I need to get with Evan to help me with that. Like, I've been on over 1,000 stages running around playing guitar and all that, but lose my prop. What am I supposed to do? And I think the reason for it is I played so many nights in bars. The last thing I ever wanted to do was go to a bar and do anything there, dancing, drinking, or anything, if I wasn't working, playing in a bar. But that would be it. Probably.
How long you been married?
I've never been married.
You're not married. Okay. So there's what we got to do. Your most important number is to go dancing at the bar, and then we'll get you married. See how it works?
That's hilarious.
I just love you. You're a great dude. All right. Last question, and then I'll give you the floor. If you had to pick a theme song that plays every time you walk into the room, what would it be?
I Will End Up by my band Landed.
Now I got to send me that song, please, because I want to hear it. All right, we're done here, but I want to ask, is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you felt compelled to share?
I think we covered a lot of stuff, and each category could probably go another hour by itself. Yeah. One thing I would add to having an operating system, and you've emphasized the importance of it, and I 100% agree with you. Doesn't matter what you do, whether it's EOS or mind methodology or OKRs or scaling up or 40X. There's a lot of popular ones and thousands of those that are not as popular. Doing anything to intentionally increase the value of your business, just focusing on that and having that discussion always gets a short-term bump. Now, the challenge with most operating systems is they make process more important than what's most important. So that our teams are running around, did I do the meeting right? Did I do this right? Did I do that right? The reason I developed the mind methodology was we're all going to focus on what's the value we create and what's the best work we're doing and continually do that. That's why I evolved, because I tried just about everything else way back in the day as I was going through it. So anything you do, please do something that's really important, and then look at what you're doing and make sure you're not making process more important than creating value. So there is that. And then, anybody that wants to learn more about the work that I'm doing, just go to my website, etw.com. We have a mind methodology course there. Take the course, read the book, change the language just a little bit inside your business, and the results will change. And I have hundreds and hundreds of examples of that, of people from around the world communicating it to me. And probably in about, Kelly, 30 to 60 days, we're re-releasing the book, and I added an 8th chapter to the book. And it addresses an issue that we talked a little bit about earlier. So there's chapter 7 and then an appendix, which is a DIY section today. The 8th chapter is going to be going over why sometimes even when you apply an operating system, you fail. And it gets into the business model strategy or approaches to increasing the value of the business, the actual value of your product or service. Do you love your stuff more than your customers do? And what are you doing about it? And then 4th, culture. So some would say, oh, I did EOS and it didn't work. I don't know. Did you really do it with the right intent? I did mind methodology. That didn't work. They were looking for a silver bullet. They looked at the book. They didn't even read it and it didn't work. So therefore that didn't work. No. So why does it fail sometimes when you intentionally follow installing an operating methodology in your business? So I felt it was really important to add that chapter. So that's coming in the next 30 to 60 days.
I love it. I'm a learn it all. Could you send that to me electronically, or do I got to go buy the book and read that? I just want that last chapter. I want to know that.
I'm gonna email you. It's a draft. Please don't share it with anybody.
No, I won't share with anybody. I just want it. I want it because ours is working. And I would tell you what you just said. And the number one quote, and I hope we use this as the show title: "Do less, better." Because we focused. Are we running our meetings correctly? And then we break out the traction book and we go through it. That's why I like the most important number. It's like, it doesn't matter. Just focus on what moves the needle. So I would tell you the same thing. Don't focus on the journey. Take it easy, because I read business books all the time. 10X is greater than 2X, or easier than 2X. Buy back your time. And, you kind of got to steal from it and then make it your own, because we're all different. And I find that about your book tremendously. And, prior to reading your book, if I didn't have this podcast, I would think EOS was it. And it got to a point where it was like, we're focused on the process more than we are the results. And that's why when I got your book, it's like, oh, thank goodness. And then, by the way, we're talking about spirituality. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. That's how I get to meet you. So please let me know when the next time you guys are having something to do with the band. I want to support you as much as I can. Every time I get to interact with you, I just realize how beautiful you are. And you emit just love and positivity. And the world needs to know more and more about you. And I'm honored to call you friend. Guys, go out and buy the book. Wait for the new chapter to come out. If you're watching on YouTube, it's right here. I'm putting it up. It's an easy read. I read it really, really, really slow because I wanted to digest it. And you could see how many things I pinned back, and I got notes and notes and notes. This man is the real deal. Thank you for playing. Thank you for being harder than life. And thanks.